The views and opinions expressed on My Story Living with Lupus podcast represents each person's individual experience. By listening to this podcast or reading our blog, you agree not to use this podcast or blog as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. As always, consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. My Story Living with Lupus podcast is officially trademarked, all rights reserved. Thank you for joining me for another episode of My Story Living with Lupus podcast. I'm your host, Susan Hendricks, and I'm so glad that you could join me on this Friday, December 10th, 2021. Today's episode is about, guess what? Lupus. That's right. I'll be talking about study finds clinical care is highly variable for people with childhood onset lupus. Also, researchers explores new ways to diagnose and treat related lupus kidney disease. And I'll give you an update on my journey with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So, you know what I want you to do? That's right. All the way from the United States to Ecuador. Get ready to grab your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, and to my listeners late at night, you know I appreciate you. So go ahead, go on, get ready to grab your favorite glass of wine and join the conversation right here on My Story Living with Lupus podcast. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Now, I want to talk about first the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and the lupus connection, and then go into how I'm coping and dealing with my journey. Now, we all know that they know more now regarding lupus and lymphoma than they did 20 years ago. Now, I shouldn't say we have to separate the two at first, and that's what I'm going to do. It's like a compare and contrast, but not really. Lupus or SLE, we know that it is a very complex autoimmune disease that comes on with any number of different symptoms and can involve multiple organ systems within the body. Any two people with lupus can have totally different symptoms. That's why I state lupus is not a one-size-fits-all illness, because each and every one of us experience something different. Now, with lupus, we know that there is joint pain, stiffness, swelling, fatigue, and fever. rash on the face that some may get and some may not get. There are other skin problems that seem to worsen with sun exposure. Fingers and toes seem to lose circulation, turning them white or blue in the cold or during stressful periods. Now, this is called Raynaud's phenomenon. Now, symptoms from different organ systems, such as shortness of breath, chest pain, dry eyes, headache, confusion, and memory loss. Now, when it comes to lymphoma, which is a cancer of the white blood cells, particularly white blood cells known as lymphocytes. The two basic categories of lymphoma are Hodgkin's lymphoma and non Hodgkin's lymphoma. As with lupus, the symptoms of lymphoma are varied, and different people have differing lymphoma symptoms. Sometimes the only symptom is a swollen lymph node. Now, painless swelling of lymph nodes in your neck, armpit, or groin, fatigue and fever, drenching night sweats, loss of appetite, unexplained weight loss, as much as 10% or more of your body weight, itchy skin, cough or chest pain, abdominal pain or fullness, rashes, and skin bumps. You may be asking what these two conditions have in common. Well, sometimes the symptoms can overlap, for one, and both diseases involve the immune system. Lymphocytes are key cells in the immune system, and the immune system is what um, array in SLE. Lymphocytes are also the problematic cells in lymphoma. But there is also this. A number of studies have found that people with SLE have a higher incidence of lymphoma compared with the general public. One of the many theories is that in an immune system that lacks proper regulation, as in someone with SLE, the use of immunosuppressive therapy to treat lupus may cause the increased incidence of lymphoma and SLE. However, many studies have been done on this subject with contradictory findings. Now, though at times there were a few studies to draw on, and often the numbers of people with both SLE and lymphoma were small in these studies. And researchers used what they could find to construct a starting platform for further study. There was some rough observations from studies with SLE patients who developed lymphoma. People with SLE who developed lymphoma, the majority were women. Age range was typically between 57 and 61 years. On average, they had SLE for 18 years prior to lymphoma. Lymphoma risk in people with SLE was higher across all ethnicities. Symptoms, findings, and lab tests of early stage lymphoma overlapped quite a bit with what is seen in SLE. Lymph node swelling, sometimes the only sign of lymphoma, is also very common in people with SLE, occurring at up to 67%. Lymphoma that develop in people with SLE, the most common one is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in people with SLE. And that has to do to diffused large B-cell lymphoma, which is also the most common non-Hodgkin's lymphoma type in the general population. Now, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in SLE, as with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in the general population, usually originates in lymph nodes. However, lymphomas that begin outside the lymph nodes are also possible in the general population and in those with SLE. I'm just giving you the background before I tell you how I'm doing. And this is for those who are new to this podcast. I have said many times that there is more to lupus than that 5-letter word. It's all right to bring awareness to lupus, but we have to go in deeper when we bring forth awareness. We really need to tell how serious this illness is. I had a conversation with a young lady the other day, and she had went and applied for her disability. And she said they informed her, well, they don't take lupus seriously, and it is not considered a debilitating illness. And I told her, what attorney do you have? I said, you need to switch attorneys because it is a debilitating illness without a cure. Now, people who have SLE, we are often treated with glucocorticoid steroids alone or combined with immunosuppressives. And many studies have tried to determine if immunosuppressive agents increase the risk of lymphoma in people with SLE, but oftentimes the results of one study contradict the next study. Now, Here are several theories about why people with SLE may be at greater risk for cancer in general and also lymphoma in particular. One such theory involves the chronic inflammation that we have. Another theory is similar but has more of a genetic basis. The thought is that the autoimmunity of SLE revs up the immune system to cause lymphocytes, the cells of lymphoma, to divide and proliferate. Here's another theory, which involves the Epstein Barr virus or EBV. Now, this is the same virus that causes infections, infectious, I should say, mononucleosis, or mono, better known as, or the kissing disease. The idea is that maybe an EBV infection that is persistent, which lingers to aggravate the immune system in just the right ways, is part of a common pathway to disease for both SLE and B cell lymphomas. Now, when it comes down to SLE, lymphoma, and other cancers, there seems to be an increased risk of both Hodgkin and non Hodgkin lymphoma in people with SLE. Now, according to data published in 2018, there is an association between SLE and malignancy, not only demonstrating non Hodgkin's lymphoma, but Hodgkin's lymphoma, leukemia, and some non blood cancers, but also including lung, liver, non melanoma skin, thyroid malignancies, and there may also be a reduced risk for skin melanoma and prostate cancer. Now, people with Sjogren's syndrome, a relatively common condition in people with SLE, experience an even greater risk of lymphoma. So there may be something intrinsic to the SLE disease that is linked to malignancy and especially lymphoma. And if you don't know what Sjogren's is, it's the dry eyes, the dry mouth that we experience, some, I should say, experience with um, lupus. As for myself, I'm hanging in there. I have my good days, I have my bad days. And on Thursday, it was kind of a bad day. I was so nauseous. Um, I was just nauseous. I was just sick and wish I had the opportunity where I could have just laid down and said, okay, it's time for you to take care of you. But as some of you may know, that I have a nonprofit where we um, assist those with chronic illnesses, especially individuals with lupus, and also we do things in the community for those who are homeless and are in need. So I couldn't just lay back and say, okay, um, it it's and to be honest, it wasn't all about me. It wasn't all about me. So I pushed through on Thursday. I pushed through. It was about the individuals that I have made a commitment um, to get out there and to do what I could to help them. That's just the way I've been raised. Um, I had my mask on. I keep my gloves and everything when I go out. But it wasn't about me. I had people depending on me, to bring them food. Um, I also service a blind individual within the community. And I try to make sure that this individual has hot meals. And so there you go. I have responsibility to my sponsors of the foundation to keep my word. And I've always been taught your word is your bond. And I try to keep my word to everyone, especially those that um, are depending on me and that are in need of assistance out there, that are living on the streets, those who are blind, and those who have a chronic illness. As I always tell my family, I'm not worried about anything because God has my back. And I honestly believe that because I have been in some situations where homeless individuals wanted to hug me. And yes, I let them hug me. No, I was not scared. Everyone deserves a little kindness. That's how I think of it. So some may say, oh, she's crazy for putting herself into further danger when we're dealing with a situation in the general public. Yeah, it may be crazy, but I have individuals who depend on me. So no matter how I'm feeling or what I'm going through, I feel that I can set that aside for a couple of hours to assist someone else and to see a smile on someone's face and to make sure that they have a hot meal. But I am hanging in there Thursday. Like I said, it was rough for me. Um, so this weekend, I plan on resting. Um, no, I won't be in the bed all day. Staying in the bed is not good for anyone. But I will cut my phone off and I will hide out. And that's how I plan to spend this weekend. But I'm hanging in there. I go back to the doctor on the 13th. We'll see where everything goes from there. I have no appetite. Um, I have went days without um, consuming anything. And if I consume something, it will be applesauce. The last time I tried to consume something to eat, I got more sick than what I originally was. So I said, just forget it. So I have that to talk to the doctor about. But I'm hanging in there. All is good. And you know, it's hard to hit a moving target. And I plan to keep moving forward. And so I won't be able to get hit and 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 just lay down and give up. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So stick with me. We'll be right back and we'll be talking about where a study finds clinical care is highly variable for people with childhood onset lupus. So stick with me. Thank you for joining me. Now we're getting ready to talk about study finds clinical care is highly variable for people with childhood onset lupus. There was a recent study assessing medical care for people with childhood onset lupus as well as mixed connective tissue disease and an autoimmune disease similar to lupus. Now, this study found that clinical care, timeliness of follow up visits, and disease prevention measures were highly variable across the 110 children included in the study, 99 with lupus and 11 with mixed connective tissue disease. Researchers created and used a pediatric lupus care index as a tool to objectively measure different aspects of medical care. The index looked at 13 different aspects of care, including types of clinical assessments performed at medical visits, vaccines provided, blood work, or testing performed, types of medication prescribed, and how doctors' visits were scheduled. They found broad variable in care. Steroid sparing drug therapy was the most common characteristic of care provided in 95% of people, while appropriate scheduling of doctor's visits occurred the least frequently in just 27% of people. Those on disease modifying anti-rheumatic drug therapy, those with nephritis, which is kidney disease, and those earlier in their disease course had higher values, indicating an overall higher level of care. People cared for by providers who saw a higher volume of patients with childhood lupus and by rheumatology fellows, a doctor training to specialize in rheumatology, also had higher scores. Now, let's talk about researchers explore new ways to diagnose and treat lupus related kidney disease. I'm getting nauseated, so I have some ginger chews. So excuse me while I open the package. Um, I wake up nauseous, and during the day, I get nauseous, and I'm running a fever right now, so I'm okay. That's all I'm going to say. I'm okay. Now, let's get to researchers explore new ways to diagnose and treat lupus related kidney disease. Findings from newly published research may pave the way for exciting advancements in the diagnosis and treatment of lupus nephritis. The study identified 237 different biomarkers, now measurable substances in the body that can indicate the presence of disease. That's what the biomarkers is. All measured via non-invasive urine tests that can help identify lupus nephritis and kidney disease progression. Researchers looked at 1,000 different urinary proteins across 30 people with lupus nephritis and found one protein in particular, known as IL 16, was found at key sites of kidney injury and was tightly linked to lupus nephritis activity. These findings suggest that IL 16 may be an important protein for healthcare providers to monitor, as well as a target for future lupus nephritis treatments. Additionally, the fact that the study found 200 plus urinary proteins were linked to lupus nephritis suggests that simple non invasive urine tests can offer an easy yet effective way to detect LN and track its progress. Now, non invasive biomarkers that reflect the degree and type of kidney inflammation, such as urinary IL 16, may revolutionize the treatment of lupus nephritis. Soon, we may be able to personalize and fine tune treatment based on frequent urine tests to minimize and the development of permanent kidney disease. Ongoing studies will tell us if IL 16 can detect lupus nephritis before abnormal urine protein, the currently available test, thereby potentially shifting the management of kidney lupus from treatment to prevention. So, when we come back, I'll be closing out. So, stay with me. You know, we've all have experienced chaos chaos over these past couple of years. You know, with everything that's going on in the world and what we're still going through now, I want to leave you with this. To all that is chaotic in you, let there come silence. Let there be a calming of the clamoring, a stilling of the voices that have laid their claim on you, that have made their home in you, that go with you even to the holy places, but will not let you rest, will not let you hear your life with wholeness or feel the grace that fashioned you. Let what distracts you cease. Let what divides you cease. Let there come an end to what diminishes and demeans, and let depart all that keeps you in its cage. Let there be an opening into the quiet that lies beneath the chaos, where you find the peace you did not think possible, and see what shimmers within the storm. Let there be blessings in the chaos. Jan Richardson. I'm Susan Hendricks, your host for my story, Living with Lupus podcast. You guys will hear from me next week. I want you to have a peaceful, positive, and oh so blessed weekend.